countdown, but let's see. All right. It actually looks like we're live. No 30-second countdown. Hey there, you guys. My name is Kelsey Kernstein. This is Courting the Truth. I've been a journalist for quite some time at the local and cable level. I am right now joined with private investigator TJ Ward. We're going to be talking about the Sudiksha Konanki case, the missing persons case where she vanished in the Dominican Republic. For those of you that are not familiar with the case, I first just want to break it down before we get to TJ. This happened. She went to the Dominican Republic with about 5 or so friends, University of Pittsburgh student, 20 years old. But she went to the Dominican Republic, I believe around March 3rd for a week for spring break. And it just sounds like her and her friends were having a great time, but then cut to March 5th. The last time she spoke to her parents was 8:30 at night on March 5th. And then it sounds like they went out all night, all the way through the night. In fact, the last seen video of them with her and her friends are walking to the beach. This is at about 4:15 in the morning, Dominican Republic time on Thursday, March 6th. And this was the very last time Sudiksha Konanki was seen. Now, this right here is Joshua Riibe. He has now been cleared from the case. That is the most recent. According to a Dominican Republic judge, they had held him for 10 days, saying that possibly he had involvement, that he was the last known person to have seen and been with Sudiksha Konanki. But she has been missing ever since. And his last, according to the NBC transcript where they went through the interview, sounds like it was in Spanish, so they translated it to English. And this is what he told them. There's been a lot of discussion that his stories have changed, but then there's been police statements saying that this could have been a translation issue. This could have been, all right, they speak a different language in the Dominican Republic. But basically what he told police is that he was kissing her in the water. They were waist deep in the water around 4:15 or so in the morning. And then the next thing he knew, a high wave took them. They went under the water. They both nearly drowned. He was able to bring her to safety, but they both nearly were under the water. And he said at that point, he got so much water in his mouth that he threw up. It sounds like on the side of the beach. And the last sighting of her, according to this NBC transcript, was that she was knee deep in the water. So she was very much in the shallow end of the water. Now, we don't know if she went swimming again, if she went swimming further in the water, if she passed out there. Sounds like they both nearly drowned, according to his interview with the Dominican Republic authorities. I will also say this. Her parents filed investigation with the Loudoun County Sheriff's Department. I believe I'm saying that correctly. And they have said that Joshua Riibe has been very forthright in his statements to them. So that's really important to point out because there was lots of speculation that his stories were changing. So I do want to say that. And he has been cleared according to a Dominican Republic judge, and they kept him there unlawfully, according to that judge. They've had an extensive search. It's now been a month to today that she went missing. K9 units, airplanes up above, searching the area, searching the water, and she hasn't come up. Nothing's come up. The only thing that has come up is that she had her sandals, and it appears to be the white garment she was wearing over her swimsuit that was on the side of the beach on a lawn chair. Anyways, I do want to go ahead and bring in, I think I covered everything. Actually, let me point this out. Very important. Her parents have come forward about a week after the case, I would say after she went missing. They said the drowning theory really doesn't make any sense. We haven't seen a body. And to say that and question that does make sense because according to the U.S. Coast Guard, typically bodies show up within 24 to 72 hours, especially when they drown near the shoreline. They're pushed back to the shoreline. But about a week later, I want to say 2 weeks after she disappeared, the parents came forward and said, we want her death to be declared a drowning. We have seen from both authorities, United States authorities and the Dominican Republic authorities, that it is likely there were high waves and her daughter drowned. But the problem is we have not seen a body. We've not seen any swimsuit wash up ashore. She is still, and I want to point this out. I checked it this morning, and I want to show this real quick. And then we're going to get to TJ. She is still on the Interpol missing persons list. I believe I added it in here, you guys. Well, I don't see it. But she is still on that list as of this morning. And so that means that this is an unexplained disappearance. It doesn't contradict the idea that she maybe drowned, but this is an unexplained disappearance. So there are still questions to consider. Now, I do want to go ahead and bring in private investigator TJ Ward. He also worked on the Natalie Holloway case. Of course, that was a missing persons case for a long time. Finally took, I think it was 18 years to uncover that case. He's worked in law enforcement for 49 years, and he's been a private investigator on a slew of cases, very important cases. And so, hey, TJ, how are you? Thanks for coming on the show today.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me.
You know, TJ, I just want to get right into it. Do you believe this drowning theory? Do you believe it's likely she drowned?
No, I do not. I do not. If I will tell you from my experience for missing persons cases, there would have been some evidence by now that was shown up. This water was searched only, by hundreds of people, by the military, also by boats, by drones, by aircraft. There is nothing shown up whatsoever. You would think even if she was taken by a shark or whatever, there would have been something, her clothes or something would have washed back up to give us some evidence that, in fact, she was in the water and she drowned. The other thing that bothers me about Riibe, and he claims he passed out, it was 12 hours before anybody found out that she was missing and nowhere to be found. So that bothers me also. And I know at this point he was a person of interest, not a suspect, and he's back home now and had to go through a big chain of events to get his passport, because apparently they lost his passport or couldn't find it. So he made his way to another country, was issued a passport by the United States government, and he's back home now in Iowa. But I'm not accusing him of doing anything improper, but just some of the facts and circumstances that surround this girl going missing does not make sense. I have a system, and I've brought this up to the family, and I've reached out to them twice. I spoke to the mother while she was with the sheriff in Virginia. She was speaking to him, and I told her, I said, let me send you all my information. When you get through with the sheriff, call me back, and I'll be more than happy to get involved. I could raise the money with a GoFundMe for me to go to the Dominican Republic and work on your behalf to try to find your daughter. The end result now of them there in the Dominican Republic and now leaving, asking the Dominican Republic authorities to declare her daughter dead, is just unbeknown to me. I just, I don't know why they would do that. I don't know if it was a culture or whatever, but to write your daughter off, and I have seen numerous videos and so on and so forth, and just slamming the family, but just leaving their daughter. There are people saying they would have never left that island. The same way Beth Holloway never left that island for 2 years trying to find evidence about where her daughter was. She stayed right there and was on top of it. I went to Aruba over 10 times, back and forth, being hired by the family in efforts trying to locate what happened to their daughter. So this obviously doesn't make sense. I've sent 2 letters of correspondence to the family up in Virginia. I've got people that are up in Virginia now that are in the same capacity, and they're Indian, and they're trying to make contact with her. And I understand last Sunday, one of them did make contact with the family and sent me an email back and told them to please call me and just discuss about what I could do for them to travel there on their behalf. I have contacts in the Dominican Republic, people that are practice in the same profession that I do, has volunteered to help me if I came down there. And that would be one of the first things I would do, would get somebody on that island that knows the island, knows the people, knows where the problems are, knows the crime, to go with me and can communicate with me also in their language. So it's real important. I did that in Aruba. The first day that I got there, I met up with some people that I started to trust, and I paid them to go with me when I was on the island to help trying to locate information and locate witnesses that may have seen or know anything about Natalie Holloway. So, but I am really just blown away that this family, and knowing that the sheriff that they talked to believes the same thing that I do, that she's not in the water. I mean, he's brought that out. He's mentioned that he doesn't believe that she's drowned either. So there's things that need to be looked at. And again, we know for a fact that the United States and these young kids do not look at this when they go just thinking about partying, being able to drink, go have fun, being away from mom and dad, that this was an unsafe place to travel that needed to be looked at. There's crime there, and same way, there's problems. And I just don't believe that, I don't believe that she's drowned. I really don't.
If you don't believe that she drowned, do you believe that she could potentially still be alive?
She's somewhere, and I think there's things that need to be looked at. There's probably kidnappings there. There's probably things of that nature that needs to be looked at. And I honestly, I do not know why the parents do not want to incorporate me to go down there on their behalf. And there are some people, and this is real important, there are some people that will not talk to law enforcement, that would talk to me because I'm not law enforcement there, that might give me some answers that I could share with law enforcement. And I can tell you this from my experience, always being a law enforcement officer for as long as I was, and being in the private sector as long as I was, I can relate to the fact that people will talk to me before they will law enforcement sometimes.
You know, I do really want to point this out. I do know that her parents, it sounds like they immigrated, the entire family immigrated here from India. It also sounds like there could be a bit of a language barrier for them, that this is not their English and Spanish are not their first language. So I, of course, want to respect the family as hard as this possibly can be for any family or any parent to go through. Have you, in any case that you've worked on, have you ever seen a family react in this sort of way? And I will say this, there are people out there who say this was a drowning. There is no evidence that it could have been something else. What do you say to them?
Well, and again, I think it may be a cultural issue. I mean, for anybody to say and go to law enforcement and ask them to issue a death certificate for their daughter when there's no evidence that she's dead. I mean, I just totally find that a little off the wall and a little erratic. I was telling you earlier, I have a system called voice analysis. It's a 21st century truth technology. It's AI infiltrated. It was made and developed by a firm in Israel. I am the only private investigator in the country licensed to use it, and I have a contract with this firm to be able to sell it and service it to law enforcement. I've sold it to several law enforcement agencies. It's an investigative focused tool. It's no different than a polygraph. It cannot be used in court, but the goodness is it's 95% accurate, and I can take any voice transmission live over the phone or from a recording, and I can in any language, and I can tell you what somebody's saying, if it's true or not true.
And who would you want to use that AI model on?
I would like to get some of the transmissions from witnesses there, and also Mr. Riibe, that talked to the police numerous times, and I know his story changed several times. And again, I'm not bringing him in as saying he did anything wrong, but I'd like to start there and look at it. But you know, I don't know why the family does not want to get me involved to try to help find their daughter. I could raise the money from a GoFundMe, and also I have a lawyer up in New York who's also from the Dominican Republic and understands. She's an immigration lawyer, and she's been very helpful to me and very cooperative and trying to make contact with the family and all. And if she said if she could talk to the family, that her and I would go to Virginia and obviously meet with the family and try to bring some senses in and trying to find their beautiful daughter.
Well, why is it so important for you to get the family's blessing to go down there and investigate this?
I think I've had two people already call me and said that they would do a GoFundMe and raise the money for me to go there. But I would want the blessing of the family to know that I'm there on their behalf to try to find their daughter. I'm not going down there unprotected and not known just to be going there and think that's why I want to go there to make money. That's not why I want to go there. My efforts and are from my heart, and try to get and bring some resources and bring some closure for the family to where their daughter is. I mean, I don't understand. If this was my child, I wouldn't have left the island. I mean, I've seen videos, people saying that I would have stayed there till I found what happened to my daughter, before I left. And again, I'm willing to go as a professional, knowing how to look for law and deal with law enforcement and be able to look and know how to look to find out what happened to their loved one.
Yeah, and I know you also told me that without the family's blessing, it's harder to get law enforcement in the United States on board with you. Is that true?
That's probably true. If I was formally hired by them, I would get cooperation by the government in the Dominican Republic, and then I would get cooperation from the government in the U.S. because I'm there professionally for a reason, and I'm not just going down on my own. That's not why I'm looking. I want to be able to let the family know that I'm there on their behalf and trying to find them on their behalf of their daughter and do this professionally and go into a contract with them. I'm not asking them for any money. We can raise the money for me to go there. That'll be very simple. There's a lot of people in this country that are concerned about what happened to this girl who's American, living in this country, that would put up money for me to go there to try to find them.
That is very much true. And I will say there's a lot of people that say these are conspiracy theories, that the evidence really points to a drowning. And the last time he saw her was knee deep in the water. She had been drinking. But, you know, it is interesting the number of people that have seen my reports on TikTok, the 2 million people viewing it, 500,000 people viewing it. And I've kindly, I've dissected the wind that morning. I've dissected what were the waves like 287 miles away. And, you know, it is really interesting when you look at the two major international drowning stories that happened in the Punta Cana area over the last 10 years, all bodies have been recovered. One of the bodies even recovered January 17th, a day later, 24 hours later, but that makes sense. But, you know, I was reading that bodies, and I don't know where the site comes from, that bodies sometimes do not show up 10 to 30% of the time. Of course, that's a massive range, right? It really just depends also on what beach you drowned on. Is there any more you can say about that? I know I've also spoken about, for anybody that have been following me thus far, I've spoken about a guy who describes himself as Dr. Beach. He says in every case that he's worked on in the last 30 years that the body has always showed up. What do you say when people are skeptics like that?
Well, I know there's people that are professionals that can go into the water and find. We had an incident right here in one of our major lakes in Georgia. And law enforcement has been looking for this couple. They found the woman that was with him, but the husband was missing. And they've looked for months, and they brought this individual in. I believe he was from somewhere in the Midwest, and he brought his equipment here in his boat, and they found him. There are people that know what the resources are in water and climates and this type of situation. But again, I would try to raise. I mean, we have cadaver dogs. We have the tools of the trade to get in and try to find people. I mean, I worked diligently with Natalie Holloway's case in Aruba for 18 years. And we're not convinced right now to some of the theories that Vandersloot pled to that happened. I mean, he first came out when he was going to cut a deal with the government and said, well, he put her in the water. Now, we know that's not true. Okay, she had to wash back up. So we know that there's some information that we're still looking into that doesn't match what he said. So the case, as far as I'm concerned, with the disappearance of Natalie Holloway is far from being over. I mean, even though that we have a confession and we know that he claimed that he killed her, and he probably did. But the mere fact, this case here, there is no evidence whatsoever that she drowned, other than somebody saying that they got in the water and he apparently said he got her out. And so what's happened? She apparently wouldn't have gone back in the water if she already had an incident with the water that he had. But there's things that need to be looked at that haven't been finalized, haven't looked. And I'm pleading with the family to don't write their daughter off. I mean, we don't have a clue where she is. And again, I will stand by, hundreds of other people that believe, even the sheriff in Virginia, that she's not in the water. There's something else that's happened, and we need to find out. We need to find out for closure of this family. And I just don't understand why they're doing this. And I plead with them. to let me help them. It's not going to cost them any money. We'll raise the money to get me there, but let me go down there on their behalf and help them try to get answers. And I know the government would help. And I know they don't want problems with people from the United States going to the Dominican Republic. And this could be, an issue. But I know for a fact that this will get a lot more publicity with my background from what I did in a disappearance in Alley Holloway. And it's good for the media to be out there, because the media will get people to start looking again and see, and there may be somebody that knows something that will come forward and let me know so we can find answers.
Well, I actually want to ask you that. I've worked at legacy media for a long time. I have my own opinions, but you've obviously worked alongside legacy media. What would you say is the reason that they've kind of faded away and not really covered this case much anymore?
I just don't. I think if there was more pleading with a family and somebody like me that got involved and was going to go to bat for them, I think I would get the attention of the media to be out there and to get out there knowing I'm looking. I mean, I had a couple of media outlets call me and wanting to know what my thoughts were and so on and so forth, and got it out in the media. But I just think it's real important that if they got me involved, I think the media would get involved, and I think you would see more evidence that may pop up when people can see and know this case is not gone dead. I don't want that to happen. And I know that probably the government in the Dominican Republic don't want this thing to be a big deal for them because of the people traveling there. But again, there's a young lady, very pretty, that's missing, and she's got a mom and dad, and we need to reunite it. We need to find answers. We really do.
Now, my question would be, and I do want to let everyone know that is watching right now, write your questions in the comments, and I'll make sure to ask TJ the questions. And everyone that's watching, I've got, I think, about 40 of you watching on TikTok too right now. Ask your questions to me in the comments, and I will ask TJ as well live here so you can see the answers. What kind of difficulties would you have going searching in a place like the Dominican Republic? I have read a lot of reports on police, law enforcement complicity, turning a blind eye to it, people getting paid off. And right, that doesn't happen in every situation, but it just takes a few bad eggs to make something like a disappearance happen, right? And I'm not speculating that, we don't know, but of course, what is going to be challenging searching the Dominican Republic?
Well, we have to look at all angles, and we have to start back with the last person that was seen with her. We got to find out what the answers are with that. We got to find and see if there was any witnesses that may have seen something that don't want to go to the police. As I mentioned earlier, there's people that don't want to talk to law enforcement for whatever reason. And I think if an independent person, that if they know that I'm working for the family and trying to get answers, they may come to me. I would bring somebody else in there that can speak the language, that knows the area, knows what may have happened, that hasn't gone to law enforcement. And I'm sure law enforcement knows that there's been kidnapping problems. Again, they don't want tourism problems there. So it may be a reason why all this is not coming out by law enforcement. They do not want to cause tourism problems in their country to lose money. But the mere fact is, there is a young lady from the United States of America that's missing in their country that we need answers, and we need to find them. And this family needs to bring me on board and let me go there on their behalf. I speak very good English. They're from another country. I know how to deal with law enforcement, and I know how to deal with people and witnesses that may come forth.
I was going to ask you, and this is from Javid, I think I'm saying your name correctly, but what would be the probability of her being trafficked?
That's a big probability. That's a big probability. It's been looked at in Aruba. Okay. It's not been ruled out. So let's I'm not taking that off of off the menu. I can tell you that.
Kim is saying, afternoon, everyone. Hope this is resolved one way or another. I also think it's, I've just been thinking about all the different scenarios of what could have happened. I had somebody say, when I said, we know human trafficking is a major issue in the Caribbean, right? $9 billion industry. they said to me, well, why would they take a person like Sudiksha Konanki, right? That's a high profile person, United States citizen. That would be so problematic. What would you be your thoughts on that?
Well, guess what? Natalie Holloway's missing and she's missing now. So let's not rule it out. Okay. It doesn't matter. This may be a high profile case, but if we let it die out, that's a problem. There are people that come and look for people like this to be able to take them close in human trafficking. So we can't rule that out yet. We don't know. And I'm not saying that she's not in the water. I just don't believe she's in the water from evidence that's already transpired. It's been 1 month and they've been looking. I mean, it was every day shortly after she went missing, and there's no evidence whatsoever it's popped up in the water whatsoever. So we need to start looking and other resources and things that may happen.
Since you've been an expert on the Natalie Holloway case, I think you said you worked on it for 18 years. Can you tell me 3 main big things that are similar between the Natalie Holloway case and a case like Sudiksha Konanki's?
Started on the water. We had somebody who was involved, and we have somebody here in Dominican Republic where somebody was involved that is apparently right now has been ruled out. Vandersloot was always a suspect, but I can tell you right now from things that I know, there's more people involved than it was Joran Vandersloot. And that may be in this case also. We don't know those answers yet, and we can't rule them out. There's other people that were involved with the disappearance of Natalie Holloway besides Joran Vandersloot. We know that. I was after his father, who was a judge in training in Aruba for a very long time. Look how many times his father was arrested along with him. Deepak and Satish also got arrested. There were other individuals arrested also. There's other answers in Aruba that have not been, the questions haven't been answered yet. And there's still answers being looked at right now to try to find out what happened to her. We still don't know exactly what happened to Natalie Holloway. There's no evidence of her remains found or whatever. But even no remains of her found in the water, the same way with this case. So we can't stop looking. We ruled out right now as far as looking, extremely doing big searches in the water in Dominican Republic, and there's no evidence whatsoever. So we need to start filling our way out to other things that may have transpired before we can rule those things out.
Now, I've also asked you this the other day. What is the likelihood, let's say you don't get a chance to speak to the parents again, they still want her death to be declared a drowning. What is the likelihood, say that money was raised on a GoFundMe that you felt that you trusted, what is the likelihood that you would continue to go down there and at least do a search?
If the family would agree for me to go there on their behalf and represent them, I would go in a heartbeat. Okay. And I know we can raise the money. I already know that. And I mean, everybody knows that. I mean, I've had people call me already and said, I'll raise the money for you to send you there. And my answer to that question is, I want the blessing of the family to know that I'm going there on their behalf to represent them. See, I can go down there the same way I did dealing with law enforcement in Aruba. I was hired by the family to come down there and look. I don't want to go down there just to be going down there. I mean, I know the money can be raised by GoFundMe, but I want the family to be involved. This is their daughter. This is their loved one. And I'm going on their behalf to try to help. And I wish somebody would get to them again and share with them and tell them that what my intentions are and why I want to go there and help them.
I will say this, it is interesting. You know, the waves were high that day, but there was no wind that morning. According to the airport, the Punta Cana airport, the waves were high waves, but I don't know what they were like near the shoreline. But according to the 287 miles away, they were large waves, but there was no wind, like dead air, zero. It is really fascinating to me. And if somebody nearly drowned, the likelihood that they would go back in the water after they had been drinking and allegedly throwing up all night, because this is the other question I think is on so many people's mind. What is so interesting in all the videos that I've seen, and I can't say for sure that they're throwing up because we don't see the throw up in the video, but Joshua Riibe and Sudiksha Konanki are the only ones out of all of the friend groups where they're convulsing forward, which makes anybody watching these tapes, it looks like they're throwing up. And to me, what's so odd is you would think after a while they get tired and they want to go back to the room, they're not feeling well. The likelihood that you want to keep going is just, it's very unusual to me. Do you find that unusual?
Well, yes. Did you see the video in the bar? There was two other guys sitting in there in the bar.
Yes, and I've been talking about it on TikTok, and I hate speculating too much, right? Like, I have to remember journalistic integrity. I hate it. Like, but yes, I think everything should be considered. It's odd.
There's other things that need to be looked at besides what we're talking about right now. We need to go back to every place that they were before they got to the beach. We need to find out who they were, who saw them. Maybe they were poisoned. Maybe somebody put, that's what happened. We think happened to Natalie. There was something put in her drinks at the bar. It made her so intoxicated. And it may be the same thing that's happened here. We don't know that yet. I mean, we have to go back and look. There's a lot of video. There's a lot of video that picked them up from the bars all the way going to the beach. So there's things that need to be looked at. And there's probably witnesses, again, that have not come out and said anything to law enforcement. There may be people that don't want anything to be found out about this. We don't know that yet, but we need to dig into the answers that may not be there yet.
Somebody wants me to ask you this. It's Bella B. Hi, Bella. Thanks for being here. Question for you is, ask him, did he see where the guy looks like he's putting something into one of those drinks? I don't know if I want to speculate too much. That makes me a little bit nervous, especially with TJ. I mean, what are your thoughts? Did you review these tapes?
I saw the videos, and I'm not accusing anybody of doing anything like that, but I think we need to speculate and go back and look and find out who those people, everybody was in the bar. We need to look at that. We need to find the bartenders. And there may be somebody, this may have happened to somebody else. We don't know. And somebody else could have got sick or whatever from a date, but we don't know that. That's just something it's got to be looked at. It's part of the situation of conducting an investigation.
IGG Rocks is asking this. How is any parent supposed to know what to do in this situation? It must be overwhelming in every aspect, which is so true. I can't imagine what they're going through.
They can't, but I don't know why, and it may be cultural, why they're just writing their parents off and went to the government asking them to issue a death certificate. I don't understand that. And one of the things we need to look at, was she insured? Maybe she was, a lot of this was brought to my attention by one of my other investigators yesterday. Maybe she, in the Indian culture, families like to match you up to be married to somebody. Maybe that's happened back at home or something, and she got a taste of having fun or being with somebody else. And maybe this is one of the reasons why, I don't know. And, but there's things that need to be looked at. I just wish that they would have a conversation with me so I could start feeling them out also and let them know what my experiences and these type of cases and what I can do for them to try to find out. I just don't understand why you'd want a country that you're not even part of to be write a death certificate for your daughter, that you live in the United States of America, and claim that she's dead when we have no clue that that's the case.
Yeah. And I will say this, from working in the media, it's a whirlwind after this happens. And I feel like this story wasn't really covered for a week after she drowned. Not much anyway. But then everybody went down there on the 12th, I want to say the 10th of March, about 4 or 5 days after she drowned. And it really started when the father said, wait a second, there's no body. So, this drowning theory doesn't make sense. Then cut to like 8 days from that, he wanted her death to be declared. And I will say, from working in the media, I've been the reporter walking up to the door, knocking on the door where, the child, their son or daughter just died in a shooting at a school. And the last thing you want to talk to as a reporter, the last thing you want to do is talk about the shocking event. I mean, last time the father spoke to her was, I think, 8:30, he said, on March 5th, which would have been a Wednesday. And I'm sure she was talking about having a great time with friends. Hey, Dad, everything's great. I'm having fun. And then the next thing you know, she's vanished. It's crazy. And I feel for these parents. I do want to ask you about, because people are asking about this online. We spoke about this a little bit earlier. I do want to kind of preface with this, you guys. Dominican Today, I've seen a couple journalistic errors in some of their reporting, factual things. So, I haven't seen a police report, but they have been reporting that there's this missing 3-year-old that
Wow.
he was playing in a national park. Is there anything you could say on that, TJ?
Well, first of all, if there's they need to, the media needs to get involved in this, and this needs to get out, and obviously law enforcement has got to be on top of this, and we need to put a team together and try to find where he may be. But again, we can't rule out the fact that somebody snatched him up. I mean, this is very, this, even here in the U.S., it's always, when you have kids, keep your kids in range of where you are.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a dangerous world right now, especially with.
It is.
I mean, it's bad, but they need to get out and they need to look for this child. I mean, I hope law enforcement is 110% on top of this with everybody they can get to work on this. I mean, this is sad. A little boy. This is sad.
And I don't want to, point any fingers. We've got our own human trafficking issues here in the United States, but, they are considered a level 2 in the Dominican Republic. They border Haiti, level 4, don't travel there. And we know that gangs have taken over multiple cities in Haiti. So, there are a lot of questions. I do want to ask you about this because I have not seen this in the national news. But you said that you've kind of been working on this case, missing persons case in Hawaii.
Yes, I've got approached last week, first part of last week, about this young lady that's missing. Same scenario. Went out to the beach with her boyfriend, had a campfire. They apparently got into the water. Well, apparently the boyfriend who's missing, they found evidence of him in the water, apparently got eaten by a shark or whatever. No evidence whatsoever of Samantha being anywhere. And I think I shared with you before we went on the air that one of the largest places to be for us being kidnapped or whatever is Hawaii.
Wow.
I didn't realize
no
that.
idea.
Yes, in the United States, Hawaii is one of the biggest people for snatching some people up. I mean, that's just, and I pled with this family also. This is the same scenario on the beach, same way with Aruba, same way now in the Dominican Republic. Now we got in Honolulu. Well, it's a city outside of Honolulu, but the Honolulu Police Department's responsible for this investigation. And the family asked me one big question when they were talking about hiring me: what are you going to do different than law enforcement? Well, again, I've raised this and I answered this question with you. When you start looking at this, I'm looking at the same thing that law enforcement's looking at again. But there's people, once the media gets involved and sees that I'm involved in this, there's going to be people coming out of the woodwork that's going to want to talk to me that would not talk to law enforcement, that may know something, that may have seen something and they're in fear of their life or whatever, or mention something, even if she was snatched up by somebody, maybe somebody knows something. But the mere fact, even if I got involved in this case, the media would get involved, that I'm there, and would help me start gathering information that I need to do these type cases. And the same thing in the Dominican Republic. If I get hired on this case, they know I worked for 18 years. I worked on Natalie Holloway's case. I was on TV every single night. It was like a soap opera of things changing in Aruba. I mean, everything was different. There was new witnesses, new people that were involved, new places that are involved. We need to look at all this comes up in these type cases in order to try to find what transpired with these people. This family's been missing their daughter since January. Okay. And I still plead with them to call me and get me involved because, time sometimes is of the essence. And we want to keep these cases live in the media with and hope somebody will come out and give us information that we don't already have. This is real important. I mean, every night the media just in Aruba Every media outlet in this country was in Aruba for 2 years. For 2 years, they were there. I mean, I went every single night on TV and
Wow.
talking about what new I found that day and what new, there's new witnesses, new evidence, and which led now, 20 years later, somebody's in jail for it. Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody's been charged formally. And I'm sure, as I told you, that there's probably going to be some additional information that's going to come up because it's still being looked at. So, I mean, this is a long time. I have a very close relationship with Dave Holloway now. Dave and I talk every week. And so, and he knows how I was, I put my life into this case. And this is probably one of the biggest missing persons cases in the United States that happened in Aruba. And so it's just unbelievable, but it's not over yet.
You just made me think of a couple more questions about the Sudiksha Konanki case, and I have people writing in. Sorry, I've got my phone over here where TikTok's live as well. I've got somebody asking, why was there no cash reward in the Sudiksha Konanki case? I never saw any reports of it. And I've got somebody, I think that they're from the Caribbean, and they said, when there's money involved, people typically come forward in the Caribbean.
Do you know in Aruba, it started out at $50,000.
Okay.
And it ended up $1 million.
Wow.
1 million. That's
why in a case like this would there be no reward?
It should be. It should be. I will tell you that there was a reward in Hawaii of $50,000 for information leading to their daughter.
Oh, for that case I just showed?
Yes, $50,000 reward for that.
Now, but here's the question I have to ask about this particular case. You told me that they drowned. I don't know much about it, but you told me that they drowned in January of this year.
He
apparently was eaten by a shark.
Right.
His body partially showed up.
They found evidence of his body in the water. And they tested and everything, and it was him. There's no evidence whatsoever with her in the water.
She wasn't ever in the water.
There's no evidence of her being in the water when he was in the water.
Wow.
They found.
Wow. Just fascinating. I'm just going to look through TikTok just to see if there's any more questions that people have. I don't want to take up too much more of your time.
I want to share one other case with you.
Please, yes.
There's a case in Anguilla, and I don't know whether you're familiar how I got involved with Anguilla.
Okay.
I got involved with that 3 years ago. In fact, it's on my website, tjwardpi.com. And you'll read about a case in Anguilla that I worked, and it I was on the front page of People magazine 3 years ago with this case.
Wow.
But interesting enough, a family who knew that I conducted the investigation in Anguilla. Anguilla is an island right near St. Martin.
Okay.
And ironically, this case that I previously worked, there were 6 individuals, and 2 of them got poisoned and died. And my client was on The Young and Restless. He was on TV and wanted to go to medical school and started in California. They ended up packing their stuff up with his wife, who was 17 years older than him. And they moved to Anguilla, and he started medical school there. And at New Year's in 2018, he invited 2 other couples to the island to celebrate New Year's. And somebody put MDA in the drink, and 2 of them drank the MDA, and both of them died.
Wow.
The ironic part that the other 4 got arrested, and the wife of my client that hired me, the wife who was 17 years older than him, after she got out of jail, the first thing she did was call the insurance company. The second thing she did after they got out of jail and they got the bodies from the autopsy was to take the bodies and go back through St. Martin and get off the island very quickly. When she got to St. Martin, she had both bodies cremated.
Okay, wow.
Yes. Okay, so there's a lot more. There was a lawsuit involved about the insurance money and so on and so forth in California. And they ruled in one of their motions to keep law enforcement and me away from the depositions.
Mm-hmm.
So not to see any of the evidence that came up in the deposition. But ironically, a year later, a gentleman named Norman Fisher in Colorado called me, who was there in Anguilla celebrating his 40th wedding anniversary 1 year last month with his wife. And prior to them about to leave, they were snorkeling in the water. And he went back over to meet his wife where she was in the water, and she was dead.
Wow.
They took her body and, of course, did an autopsy. And he called me shortly after she died, and I called the funeral home that took the body, and I said, please do not embalm the body. I sent an aircraft there at $59,000 to pick her body up and bring it back to Colorado, and because they wanted to do a private autopsy here to see if he could find out why his wife died. And when we got her body back, they embalmed her already. And to this day, I had a contact from the last case I worked in Anguilla. Twice now, we've tried to track down the pathologist. To this day, he does not know why his wife died. There's no reports that we can find about the autopsy that was done on her to declare why she died to this day. And I find it very off the wall that a country like this that is very well known, and a lot of movie stars and all go to Anguilla. It's a very expensive island.
Mm-hmm.
Why this family does not know why their mother and why his wife had died.
Yeah, it is odd to not get an autopsy report. I mean, typically it takes 6 weeks, and they'll tell you the reason that the person died, especially when you requested one.
Yep. Well, it's been requested, and the United States government's been involved too. And they claim that there is one, but we've tried every way we can. I have a contact there that worked with me in that island, and he went to the magistrate court last week and made the inquiries about. He sent me an email back and said they have no clue where the pathologist is right now, and no clue where the reports are. To this day, he does not know why his wife is dead.
Wow.
So this is another thing the media needs to get out and be able to start looking at why we're not getting answers from somebody's death. And again, what's going on in Dominican Republic, that's what I want to try to help the family to discover why or where is still, there's still things going on looking to find answers.
Yeah. I was just going to ask you 2 more questions. I got so many people writing me on TikTok, asking me a ton of questions. People saying he needs to go to President Trump. Other people saying, why weren't there boats being logged in and out of the Punta Cana area? Another person asking, could she be on another island? I think at this rate, anything could be possible.
Well, I'll tell you something very interesting. I've mentioned to you about the layered voice analysis.
Yeah. And
now that they're getting a handle on these people who's come across the border, I just sent documents to President Trump and to his Secretary of Homeland Security about the layered voice analysis to be able to utilize the voice analysis with the government in Washington, D.C.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And
interesting.
I got an email back from President Trump's office, his office yesterday that they've received my information.
Okay.
So, in hopes that maybe the government will allow me to bring the voice analysis. That 14 countries around the world are using the layered voice analysis for law enforcement.
Fascinating.
And so forth.
I do have to say, there was one comment when you mentioned that earlier, the AI model that you have, and somebody, and this is like a side note, but somebody was like, hey, can I use that? Can you give me that AI model for my kids? To try to figure out when they're lying and not lying.
I had a son that used to do that when he would go out. He'd call me and tell me something on the phone. He said, Dad, you're not using that voice analysis on me, are you, right now? But I will tell you, it's 95% accurate. And I've used it with law enforcement. There's one law enforcement agency here in Georgia that bought 5 of them from me that the government paid for.
Oh, wow.
And there's federal money and state money to be able to get the electronics.
Do you think more accurate than a lie detector test? Because so many people have
Oh, it's more accurate than lie detector. It's 95% accurate.
Fascinating.
And I can tell you, I can see basically what you're going to be talking about. My next question is your last answer. And
wow.
Oh yeah.
Isn't that scary?
I can see your thoughts that come up. It works off the voice and what's going on with your mind. I mean, it's amazing. But this equipment It's being used, and one of the countries it's being used in is India.
Oh, I had no idea. Okay.
Yeah, in one of the countries is India, and but I swear by it. I mean, when I was in law enforcement, I used it because I was an internal affairs commander, and I could use it was put into the laws of law enforcement to be able to use it if they got questioned, be able to do a voice analysis on it, be able to being truthful about something that had written in their course of their actions.
TJ, real quick, I'm going to ask you one last question. I don't want to take any more of your time. You've been so great to come on here, so I thank you so much. But Bella B is asking, what is his opinion about Josh's 3 statements, Joshua Riibe's?
Well, again, I have a problem with 12 hours going by that he claims that he was passed out or asleep before she was told by anybody that he couldn't find her or she was missing or whatever. I would like to take those transmissions of his 4 or 5 statements that he gave to law enforcement and analyze them and see if he's being truthful.
Yeah.
I would love to be able to do that. That would be, if I could get there and with law enforcement and they'd have to know and see my credentials, but I spent a lot of time in law enforcement. And my last 11 years, I retired in 2019. I was an internal affairs commander. I policed the police. Okay. I sent 2 police officers here in Georgia to prison for tipping drug dealers off. And I used the voice analysis on them and caught them lying to me about tipping drug dealers off. So I think me sending it up to Washington, D.C. was a great deal. And in 2011, I got approached by when the Democrats and Republicans who was running for office back then.
Yeah. I
used it and analyzed them when they were having speeches on beach of thing promoting their campaign. And they told me, oh yeah, I sent them the results to the test from doing that. I mean, so it's 95% accurate. I can see what's going on with somebody. And I think that would be one of the first places I would start if they would allow me to hear the evidence that was given to them by Riibe and analyze and see where he may have problems with his speech or what he was talking about.
I think it would be fascinating to do. I just want to say thank you so much, TJ, for coming on. Like, this has been so great. I so appreciate your time. I know everybody on TikTok so appreciates it. Everybody
I would hope
now.
The family, somehow, somebody that's one of your audience would get to the family and let them know what my feelings are to try to help them find out what happened to their daughter. I mean, I do this for a living and been doing it a long time, but I would know if that was my daughter, I probably wouldn't have left the island either. I want to find out answers. I want to know where my daughter is.
Avneet is asking, her name's Avneet. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. She says, why does TJ need the parents' approval? Can he just fight for her himself?
I can, but again, the reception that I would get with law enforcement and the government to go down there when I'm formally hired by the family and I'm there on their behalf.
Totally.
See, a lot of people, and I heard there's a lot of people trying to raise money for this right now. I don't want any part of it. This isn't about money. This isn't about money. This is about me working for them as a representative to go down there on their behalf to try to find their daughter. That's why it's been so important to me that I've sent correspondence to them and letting them know. And the lawyer that's on board with me in New York that's trying to help me also get to the family and let them know what and why we want to be there for them. I think that's real important.
Totally. And I completely understand that.
Yeah, I'm there, going there, and it's not about me. It's about me being there for them and trying to find answers. That's
totally. All right, TJ, thank you so much for your time. I so appreciate this. I hope we do get some answers, and I think that this is.
I will let you know if I get somebody that calls and gets to the family, and but
please.
I'll be back on board with you.
Fantastic.
If I go there, you can rest assured all the media will be back on board, which will be great.
Because I've been a reporter, a correspondent. They're all back there.
Everybody be back there, and this case will not die. This
Yeah,
case will stay alive like Natalie Holloway's case did for 2 years until we get answers.
totally.
So
All right,
I
TJ.
appreciate your audience, and I hope that that somebody that may be listening today would reach out to the family also and let them know what my thoughts and what I want to do.
Thank you, TJ, for your time. Have the best day. All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you. Bye, guys.
Okay.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye-bye.